Please remain standing whilst my chaplain, Reverend Gary Lewis, says prayers.
Let us pray. We live tonight thankful for the peace and the rule of law that we enjoy as a democratic body. We pray for those parts of the world that are suffering at this time from war and division. Most especially we pray for the people of Syria. We pray for them for an end to their terrible suffering and for peace and stability in that whole region. We pray too for our leaders, that they may be guided by a spirit of wisdom and humanity and a determination to find a peaceful solution to the terrible complex and ongoing conflict there. And so in our own land, remember tonight in Thanksgiving the Duke of Lancaster Regiment, giving thanks for the service they offered and given this nation and for the freedom that they have received of our brother. As we pray now for your blessing upon this meeting, upon our councillors and the communities they represent. We're thankful for all that they enjoy and share together, the opportunity to meet and discuss the business that is lies on our agendas. We make this prayer in the name of your Son, our Saviour Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. There are no fire alarm tests planned for this evening, so if the alarm sounds, please leave the chamber by the nearest door. Then follow the illuminated fire exit signs and assemble in the car park at the rear of the building. Thank you, councillors. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have so far been received from councillors Balmain, Bowen and Henderson. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Carey-Jones.
Councillor Carey-Jones. Sue? Sue Pinley. Councillor Leslie McKay. Thank you.
Councillor Emma Anderton and Councillor Ian Duffy.
Thank you, councillors. No more apologies, thank you. The next item on the agenda is confirmation of minutes. There are 2 sets of minutes to be confirmed this evening. First, can I please have a proposal that the minutes for the council meeting held on the 8th of March 2018 be approved as a correct record?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Does anyone want to comment on factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment? No, thank you. Would those members present at the 8th of March meeting who are in favour of confirming the minutes as a correct record, please indicate. Those against? Oh, sorry. Those for? Yeah, we know. 26. Those against? Any abstentions? That's fine. The minutes of the 8th of March meeting are confirmed. Can I now please have a proposal that the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 21st of March 2018 be approved as the correct record?
So move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment? No. Thank you very much. Would those members present at the 21st of March meeting who are in favour of confirming the minutes as a correct record, please indicate. That lady there. Yes. Thank you very much. The minutes of the 21st of March meeting are confirmed. The next item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest to declare on any items included on the agenda? No, thank you. The next item is announcements. I just have one announcement this evening. I look forward to seeing most of you at the Mayor's Charity Ball at Wyreside Hall Dolphin Home on Friday the 20th of March 2018 at 7 p.m. All the available tickets have now been sold. However, a final reminder that raffle tickets for a luxury spa hotel weekend break for two, including breakfast and dinner, up to the value of £500 are still available from myself after this meeting. The draw will be made at the ball. Yes. There is anybody who doesn't want to drink and drive. There is accommodation available at the Fleece, which is just up the road from Wyreside Hall. So we have got rooms still available, haven't we, Councillor? So if you just let my deputy or myself know, then we can give you the number. Thank you, councillors. The next item is public questions and statements. However, there are none. So the next item is questions on notice from councillors. There are two questions under Procedure Rule 11, both of which are from Councillor Lady Atkins and addressed to the Resources Portfolio Holder, Councillor Alan Vincent. Councillor Lady Atkins, would you please ask your first question now?
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Why are key worker homes delaying the completion of the contract for the redevelopment of the Garstang Community Centre? Could I be given an indication when this would happen?
Councillor Vincent, would you please respond?
If you're taking it separately, Madam Mayor, yeah. Key worker homes have given a number of reasons over a period of about 12 months or so as to why they haven't progressed this. I think most of those are probably covered by legal privilege, so I'm not going to discuss them publicly. However, we have become increasingly frustrated by the lack of progress in relation to the community centre, and we have now had a conversation with them in which they have given an indication that they are going to be ready to exchange contracts in the very near future, and our response to that has been to set a deadline of the 31st of May, which they say they will beat.
Thank you.
Can I have a supplementary on that one?
Yes,
because
please
bearing
do.
in mind the length of time that it has taken, do you think there should be a penalty clause in the contract where they have got to start building or developing the area? Because I am really getting concerned about this, Madam Mayor.
Well, obviously, the negotiations haven't included a penalty clause, but it's something we could have a look at and we'll consider. Whether we would regard it as a fetter on the sale is an issue I would have. So I would be more concerned by that maybe than a slight delay, but we'll certainly talk to them about it.
Thank you.
My second question, is the responsible portfolio holder aware of the increasing concerns in Garstang at the delays in proceeding with the redevelopment of Garstang Community Centre, and what does he propose to do to allay those concerns? Thank you.
Councillor Vincent?
I think that I can say that I shared those concerns, and as I've said, we were becoming increasingly frustrated by the considerable delay that there's been. We have put pressure on now. What will I do to allay those concerns? Set a deadline of the 31st of May by which contracts are to be exchanged, so that completion will take place, I would guess, within a couple of months of that. So we would be looking to have the thing completed by the end of July. And if we don't, then we would have the option to remarket.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the questions on notice. The next item is executive reports. First, the report of the Leader of the Council. Not present. Councillor Alan Vincent, in absence of the Leader, would you, as Deputy Leader, please introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as for the benefit of councillors who don't know, the Leader of the Council was given very short notice that he was being slotted in for surgery, and as he'd complained at the length of time it was taking for him to get that surgery, he didn't feel that he could pass up the chance of having it. So he had it on Tuesday, and he will be back with us certainly for the next meeting, and I suspect quicker than that. So he sends his apologies, but that's the reason why he's not here. I'm happy to take any questions as far as I can answer them. I will, and if not, I'll have to ask Councillor Henderson to give you written responses.
Councillor Brian Stevenson.
I'm obliged to you, Madam Mayor. Now, what I'm going to say, members, is really it's serious stuff. I think I need to refer just briefly to Shakespeare, really. It's not about the importance of being earnest, well, that's Oscar Wilde, isn't it? It's actually the importance of maintaining the high standards of Wyre Borough Council. Now, before I get to the crux of the question, I'd just like to say a few things. I understand the problems the Conservatives have in obtaining candidates. They more or less are going everywhere they can to get people to stand. They're desperate. So, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to refer to the increasingly growing number of Tory councillors who don't live in this borough. Oh yes, they was elected in the borough, but they have now spread wings, flown away, and you know, they've moved out since being first elected, and of course it seriously reflects on the people they represent, and it's disgraceful, really. Now, one is a member of two authorities. We know that. The last one now. I believe
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Point of order. I'm led to believe that we should be asking questions about the report.
Yes.
If so, then this is not relevant to the leader's report.
I'm asking
Thank
about
you.
the report. It is relevant, and I think it is. Is it not against the constitution of this council, Madam Mayor, to allow this to continue? Members having addresses of convenience.
Point of order again, please, Madam Mayor. Again, I'm
politics.
repeating what I've said. That is nothing to do with this
Well,
report.
I think
This is a nonsense, and to allow this to go on would be quite
Madam Mayor,
outrageous.
I feel
Sit down.
this is within the responsibility of the leader, and that's what it says.
Members,
in
can
the
I?
minutes.
Members, can I just bring
Councillor
some?
Stevenson, can you just...
Members, can I just bring some clarification for your benefit? The question or comment only has to be about the leader's responsibility. So it doesn't have to be specifically about what's in the report that's before you. It's about the responsibility of the leader. However, Councillor Stevenson, it's not for the leader to answer any questions about the criteria that a candidate has to meet for the selection process and for an election. And if you let me finish, the criteria is very clear. You don't have to live in the borough. One of the criteria is that you should have a link with the borough. For example, if you owned a property but rented it out, that's a sufficient link. If you owned a business and worked from that business, that is a sufficient link for you to be nominated and to stand as a councillor.
Without being able to represent your ward correctly. Madam Mayor,
The criteria
this
doesn't...
is it's a
Councillor
comedy
Stevenson,
of errors, it's a joke.
the criteria does not...
It's a joke.
I do not set the criteria. The criteria is set by the Elections Commission.
It
And
needs
the
to
Elections
be-
Commission make it very clear in the criteria that one has to meet.
I'm going to ask the question, when is the leader of the council or the leadership over there going to put an end to this? It's disgraceful.
Thank you,
Thank
Councillor
you,
Stevenson.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Vincent, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I will, Madam Mayor. I mean, basically, I think the Chief Exec has already outlined why it's a nonsense. I mean, it's an even greater nonsense, for example, if somebody were living in Tenerife and then came over here, said that he lived in England and stood in an election in Wyre, when in fact he was living and working outside the country.
Point of order, Chairman, that is a lie.
Let alone outside the area of this council, not even in the country. But that, again, is not my responsibility either, so I'm not going to mention it.
Any other comments or questions?
Are there any other... Councillors, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? No, thank you. Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly from the Labour Group, if you can pass on our best wishes to Councillor Henderson for a speedy recovery. And secondly, with regard to the ward walks mentioned at para 3.1, along with my fellow Jubilee councillor, we will be taking up the opportunity of a ward walk early in May. I hope we'll be able to highlight some of the potential areas for improvement in Jubilee, as well as those issues which just don't seem to go away. So I'm looking forward to the Jubilee Walk, and I would encourage others to take up the opportunity. Can I therefore ask, if councillors have not already booked in a ward walk, whether or not there is still the opportunity to arrange one? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent?
I'm fairly confident.
The deadline was set and reminders were sent out.
I'm fairly confident that the answer is no.
Sorry, just to bring some clarification to that, members, and that affects not just Labour wards but also Conservative wards. When emails were sent out for the invitation, reminders were sent, second reminders were sent, and then a third one was sent. And the ones that didn't respond, the leader made it very clear that the deadline should be drawn at that point, and so it's not being drawn on political grounds. Because, as I said, there are certain wards which are Conservative wards which will not have a ward walk because there was no response, and there are certain Labour wards equal which we didn't get a response. So I'm afraid that the leader was very clear in terms of the deadline has been drawn and we should do the ward walks where people responded.
Thank you. Councillor Atkins?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just to say we had a very successful ward walk on Monday. I'm somewhat worried that then the council leader then went into hospital, but we were okay in Garstang as far as I know, but it was a very good one and I think successful, so thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Leader's report. We will now move on to the report of the Resources Portfolio Holder. Councillor Alan Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report's before councillors. I'll take any questions or comments.
Councillor Ruth Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the Full Council here, the meeting here on the 7th of December last year, I challenged Councillor Murphy about the weak state of the planning department and how an enforcement officer was unable to undertake her role. Bear with me, I'm getting to the point, as she was dealing with a backlog of planning applications. However, Councillor Murphy was prevented from responding to my questions due to the interruption by the Chief Executive, Gary Payne, who said categorically that staffing matters were nothing whatsoever to do with the elected members here in this chamber. So can you therefore tell me, Councillor Vincent, why you have two references to staffing matters within your report? The answer is that, as usual, you are manipulating what is included in a report. You are manipulating it so that no negative information is ever recorded, that the council is never ever seen in a bad light. And in the case of your report, you bend the rules whatever it suits. So what we need is consistency. That's all we're asking for. If you are allowed to mention staffing, then we, the Labour opposition, should be allowed to discuss staffing also, uninterrupted, I may add, in meetings when the needs arises. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, would
Yes,
you
thank you,
please
Madam
respond?
Mayor. I mean, basically what that shows is a complete misunderstanding of what the different roles are, which is the issue that we had in December. Basically, I have a responsibility for human resources as a portfolio holder, but it relates to policy. It doesn't relate to individual members of staff or to individual appointments of staff or anything of that nature. So it is two completely separate issues. The Chief Exec is the head of the paid service. I have responsibility for the policy relating to HR.
Sorry, point of order. The fact is, it's mentioned staffing. I mentioned staffing because mine was negative. I was told I couldn't discuss it. So I'm sorry, if staffing, if we can mention staffing, fine. But it works for both sides, not just your side when it's a positive.
No. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Resources Portfolio Holder report. We will now move on to the report of the Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holder. Councillor Alan Vincent, in absence of the Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report?
Okay. I'm beginning to think I'd sooner be at Garstang Town Council. Maybe not, maybe not. The report's before members. I'll answer any questions or take statements.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Vincent? Yes, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had in my garden a second green bin that's been standing there now ever since this scheme came into operation. Are there any plans to reclaim these green bins, or we dispose of them ourselves?
Oh, I thought they was picking them all up.
Yeah, they will be collected, and I would have thought they should have been collected by now, but obviously we'll register your complaint and try and get that sorted.
Councillor Marge Anderton.
Can I just say I too had 2 bins, but I phoned up the help desk and they collected it the next day. Very efficient. Yeah, I just left it on the drive and they came and took it away.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
No more questions or comments? Yeah.
No more. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Ballard.
I'd just like to, if it could be reported back to David Henderson, reference to the street cleaning, and I want to pass on my sincere thanks for a chap, I don't know his second name, but he was called Nick, he was on the sweeper, and he actually went off route and did the gullies for me as a gesture, and I would like to pass on the thanks. It was very well received by the residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. No more comments? No more comments, thank you. That concludes the consideration of the report for Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces portfolio holder. We will now move on to the report of the Planning and Economic Development portfolio holder. Councillor Murphy, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam. Members have got the report in front of them. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Just one point. At 3.1, there's been a bit of a hiccup with the consultation document. It needs a bit more work doing to it, so it will be slightly delayed. It will be later on this month that it starts the public consultation, and we'll circulate the date to the public for a new meeting. It won't be taking place at the football club on the 9th of April, but it is moving forward. It's just been a couple of weeks of a hiccup. I'm happy to have any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At 2.4, Councillor Murphy, I'm referring to the exploring the options for the weekly markets at Cleveland's. It's just a bit of an update, really. I know highways weren't originally supportive of it. I've had it today that they're reviewing that decision, so hopefully we can get some good news.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Councillor Murphy?
Yes, thank you for that. Members might be aware, might not be aware. When we launched the coastal community team at Cleveland's, they stated their interest in having a weekly market at Cleveland's. Everybody's on board with that. Our market manager is more than happy to run it. The stall holders are more than happy to go. And it was this hiccup with county. Hopefully we'll overcome that, and sometime soon there'll be a weekly market within Cleveland's on a Wednesday, so it doesn't interfere with any other markets.
Councillor Hodgkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is on the same subject, really. I was very interested to see that the Cleveland's Coastal Community Group were discussing this. Many people have wanted a market in Cleveland for quite a number of years, but we've always been turned down for various reasons which I don't wish to go into at the moment. But could Councillor Murphy tell me what has changed in that respect? Does he envisage that this will be successful this time? And if it is successful, where do you intend to hold it? I hope it's in the vicinity of the shops, as we don't wish to take any trade away from the shopping area itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Councillor?
Yeah, we thought we might hold it in Poulton, John. It's going to be on Victoria Road, on the widest part of the pavement there, in the space along. Hopefully it will take off. Hopefully it will be successful. And if it does, then the space on Slater Road, is it as well, by B&M, to turn around into there to expand it. But the whole point of it would be to get more people into the town centre. So it's the town centre where we want it to be. There's a will there this time with this new group doing it, and the parties involved. Hopefully it'll come off.
How will we overcome the objections we've had in the past?
Charm.
Councillor Shuin. Councillor Shewan.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Mayor. Ian Butler was more or less on the Market Forum for many, many years. And Ian insisted that there should not be any markets within 7 miles of the Fleetwood Market because of a law passed by Parliament a number of years ago. And it seems as though we're contravening that law. And really, I'd hope to stop doing it. Fleetwood Market is having a problem, but opening all these markets in the surrounding areas in close proximity to that historic market is in fact doing a great deal of damage. And I would hope that the portfolio holder would actually look deeply into that. I haven't any knowledge of it myself, but I know it was strongly defended by Ian Butler on many, many occasions in this council chamber.
Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, you obviously don't know about the market charter that is in place. It is within 7 miles of somewhere, but on an existing market. As Fleetwood Market is Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, holding it on the Wednesday doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And as a matter of interest, the vast majority of stall holders that have indicated they would like to stand at Cleveland's are from Fleetwood Market.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's the A585 Windy Harbour Schiphol Improvement Scheme. Having attended the public consultation event on the 23rd of March, I would encourage all local residents who have not been to one of these this event and the ones that will be coming up to actually go along there, because there's quite a lot of information that they'll get if they haven't already got it, and they'll want to know about the development that's coming along. So I would say to the locals, get out there and visit one of these consultation events. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murphy, would you like to comment?
I don't think there's anything I can say there. I've been to 2 of the public events. They've been well attended. Fingers crossed, everything goes to plan and we get that rolled in.
Councillor Shewan.
I'd just like to ask Councillor Murphy a question about the Hill House Enterprise Zone power station. Obviously, it's been taken back to the inspection. I'm just wondering, it was refused on the last time there was an application because they couldn't overcome the noise issue during times when the power station was in operation. Have these been resolved, or do they still persist?
Councillor Murphy.
Again, I don't know where you get your facts from, but there was a planning permission granted to that site that expired. As far as this application goes through, the National Infrastructure will be looking at it. There will be noise and all the pollution studies that go with it. It's part of the planning process, so it will still be done, but there was a planning permission in place for it.
Are there any more questions? Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Planning and Economic Development Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holder. Councillor Berry, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report is before Council. I'll do my best to answer any questions. I'd just like to mention that there is a slight typing error in clause 4.2 of my report. Reference should be to a meeting to set up a flood action group in Great Eccleston and not St Michael's, because we've already got a flood action group in St Michael's. It's been in existence for quite some time.
Thank you. Councillor Shewan.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Yeah. The flexible is 2.7. The flexible homeless support grant. funding. It's good to see that Wyre are receiving some help with this problem. The grant for 2018-2019 from 2017-2018 is around 12%. And for 2019-2020, it's 38%. That is a clear indicative of the expectation for this policy to fail in its puny attempt to resolve this homeless problem. Yet again, the authority is saddled with the shortcomings of this government. In its ambition to close the deficit, it missed its targets many times, again. But what it did succeed in was in more than tripling the national debt, from Labour's £500 billion to £1.75 trillion, saddling the nation yet again by its incompetence. Homelessness is a scar on this country's reputation, and increasingly an experience more people are having to endure than at any other time since the huge post-war housing programme. Will Councillor, when Councillor Berry, do you expect to get all the help you really need and deserve to tackle these anomalies of homelessness? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Look, I'm not going to take on a national issue. This is very much about local affairs, and in fact, this council's had an excellent reputation in dealing with homelessness. I mean, years ago, we were spending quite a lot of money, £300,000 in putting people up in hotels and boarding houses and all that sort of thing. And by some firm action, resolute action, we've been able to virtually eliminate that. Now, we've got further duties that have been given to us by by government to attend to these issues. They are national issues mainly, but it does help enable us to sort of early identify problems, because I think the period now we've got to look at is people who are likely to be homeless within about 60 days. I think before that it was somewhere near 28 days. So, yeah, so it's, you know, there is that sort of view that we've now got to take, a lot more longer term view. So we will be trying to early identify people with issues and problems and then prevent them being homeless. I mean, there will be a lot of measures being undertaken by our officers, including sort of tenancy training, debt management, employment problems, making sure that they're entitled to claim all the benefits. If there's any health issues, this sort of thing will be done by our officers. And obviously we will establish and maintain good sort of relations with the Salvation Army and local landlords. So that's what we will be doing. We've got a good record behind us, so I'm sure that our officers will do their utmost to make sure that we can meet the requirements of central government.
Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regard to November's flooding, I was under the impression that following events of this nature, there is a requirement to provide a report that will be publicly available. Given the issues across many wards, I think it's vital we see this review together with any lessons learnt from the flooding. Although responsibility for this rests with Lancashire County Council, as the lead local flood authority, are you in a position to inform councillors as to when Wyre councillors and the residents of Wyre are likely to see this? Thank you.
This report, as you quite rightly say, has got to be, it's their statutory duty of Lancashire County Council to provide. They have not provided it yet. Sadly, they were not at the meeting of the Flood Action Group when this was raised a week ago. And obviously we've sent the message out to Lancashire that they've got to get this report to hand. We, in our own way, have sort of held meetings with residents, which I think is the most important feature of it to try and deal with their issues and explain to them, because we got a lot of agencies, if you remember, to that meeting. We got Lancashire, we got the Environment Agency, you know, and various agencies. Our own council were there to explain to people, the United Utilities, what had happened on the day, to allay people's fears and also their concerns, and make sure that we were doing what we can to help them. It is an ongoing situation, and it's something that we want to ensure that Lancashire County Council, as the flood authority for this area, play their part.
Councillor Brian Stevenson.
I'm obliged to you, Madam Mayor. Roger, this is very pleased to say, this is quite non-political. It's about something which is dear to your heart, and of course that is the CCTV system. Are you happy with how it's proceeding? Is there any need to further improve it? And are there any plans for further improvement? Now, very soon we shall be having the local derby, of course, between Fleetwood and Blackpool. And I know you're a Fleetwood fan, so we're very, very pleased about that. Will it be active, the CCTV set? Will it be active, you know, as people are going to the ground to make sure there's no, you know, well, we can get it, can't you, unruly behaviour and so forth. In actual fact, will the CCTV be actively there monitoring the spectators as they go to Highbury? Thank you.
You're slightly out on your facts, because the match is at Bloomfield Road, so on Saturday. And I hope to be there to support Fleetwood. I've got a bad cold this evening, so I'm sort of working on remedies to make sure that I can attend. But yeah, I mean, basically, we do, you know, flag up issues that might arise. I mean, I know we're not expecting any trouble at Fleetwood when we have the Alfie Bow concert, but there will be people there to monitor the situation. We'll also be there on the Fleetwood tram Sunday. You know, they do a lot of work on that one. You know, so we are aware of events going on in Fleetwood and other areas, and we make sure that they look on CCTV, and we also, obviously, things like Christmas markets, things like that. You know, we are aware of possible situations, and we want to make sure that somebody's there to monitor what's going on as it happens.
Well, you haven't answered me though. Is there any plans to improve it?
Sorry, Councillor Lees. Councillor Lees, it's not a debate.
I didn't answer the question.
No.
I will.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question has been already addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bridge.
May I put in a personal plea for all the Alfie Bow fans to behave themselves? We know they have a certain reputation, and I really don't want them to live up to it.
The answer as well.
I shouldn't think you want to respond, Councillor Berry. Any more questions? Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report of the Leisure and Culture Portfolio Holder. Councillor Murphy, I understand that in the absence of Councillor Bowen, you are going to introduce this report. Would you please do so? Thank you.
Yes, Madam. Tonight I will be Councillor Bowen. I spoke to her yesterday. She sends her apologies. For those who don't know, Easter Saturday she was out on one of her bigger horses and managed to have an accident with it, and she's got a nasty break in one of her legs, so she's going to be out of action for a few weeks. She won't be going hunting anytime soon, that's for sure. But the report's before you. I'll try and answer any questions, and as previously, with her not being here, if there are any I can't answer, then there will be a written response.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Murphy? No? Thank you very much. That concludes the consideration of the Leisure and Culture Portfolio Holders Report. The final executive report is from the Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holder. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report is before members. Members may be interested to know that Healthier Fleetwood, which is obviously a great programme which the Council has supported through resources in terms of facilities and whatnot. It's a great scheme. It's done brilliant work in the short time it's been going so far, and it's actually receiving national recognition from the BBC. That will start at 6 o'clock on Sunday on the 6 o'clock news. It will be on the breakfast news in the morning. Sorry, the 10 o'clock news on Sunday, breakfast news on the Monday, and then 6 o'clock news on the Monday, and it's also due to be on PM on Radio 4 at 5 o'clock on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the portfolio holder? Councillor Kay.
Thank you. I was hoping that the Youth Mayor would be here tonight to celebrate the successes of the High Sheriff of Lancashire Young Citizens Award, and also the International Women's Young Woman of the Year Award for the Falk House. Jessica came second. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Shelley Birch for supporting our Youth Mayor, and it's fantastic the 2 years that she's done. She's been an excellent ambassador for Wyre. Thank you.
She certainly has. No more comments or questions? Councillor Atkins?
Yes, I'd just like to say under 3.1, I'm delighted that Garstang is now joining the Fylde and Wyre Clinical Commissioner. We've been fighting for that for some time. Delighted.
Yes, we have. Thank you. Michael, would you like to respond to that? No, that's fine. Thank you. No more comments or questions? Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holders Report, which is the last executive report this evening. Now is the opportunity for members of the Cabinet to make comments or ask questions on reports of their colleagues. Do Cabinet members wish to do so? No. No, thank you very much, councillors. That concludes the consideration of the executive reports. The next item is the Annual Treasury Management Policy and Investment Strategy Report, which is on page 32 of the agenda. Councillor Alan Vincent, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This has already been through Cabinet. It's the annual report. If there are any questions, I'll attempt to answer them.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No. Thank you very much. Would members please vote on the recommendations? Those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. The recommendation is approved. The next item is the nomination of a second representative to the Lancashire Police and Crime Panel. Councillor Alan Vincent, in the absence of Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report's an obvious one. We have a second seat to fill on the Police and Crime Panel. The proposal is that that should be Councillor David Henderson as Leader of the Council.
Is there a seconder for that proposal?
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Are there any comments, questions or an alternative nomination? Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Clearly we would have liked to put forward a representative from the Labour group, but according to the report there is a need for political balance. As such, the Labour group won't put forward a nomination and will abstain from this vote. It is hoped that the appointed councillor will take up the role with more reasoned judgment than the current Home Secretary, who apparently believes falling police numbers are not to blame for rising violence. Callum MacLeod, Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales, said, "We strongly disagree with the Home Secretary's statement. The fact is a simple one. This government has recklessly cut police numbers and funding, and we now have significant increases in violent crime. You do the maths. Our evidence clearly shows that officers are under immense pressure, and the reduction in officer numbers is impacting on the ability to respond to rising crime." He continues, "All of our research shows a police service struggling under the pressure of increased crime and reduced resources, and unless the government address these issues and provide the police service with the funding it needs, we will continue to see the impact this has on the public and our country." The Labour group hope that Councillor Henderson will be able to support the Police and Crime Commissioner in his quest to protect frontline services and obtain the required funding to properly police Lancashire. Specifically, we also hope that Councillor Henderson will support the Commissioner's attempts to make the government pay fully for the cost of policing the Preston New Road fracking site. After all, Lancashire rejected fracking. The Conservative government then went against all natural logic, undermined the democratic process, overturned the rejection of fracking on the Fylde coast, and then this Conservative government think it's acceptable to pass on the costs of policing to Lancashire. Adding insult to injury is the phrase that springs to mind. And just to conclude, police cuts and additional costs at Preston New Road are adversely affecting policing in Wyre. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you. Councillor Vincent, would you please respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Of course, Councillor Fylde is bringing up matters which are absolutely nothing to do with the item which is before you. Absolutely nothing to do with it. The majority of the increasing violent crime is in London, and the police budgets in London have in fact been ring-fenced and protected for some time. So to suggest that it's budget-dominated is nonsense. If the Police and Crime Commissioners anywhere want to see how to run an authority with protection of frontline services and without breaking the bank, they ought to come here.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? No. Would members please vote on the recommendation? Those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? The recommendation is approved. The next item is the proposed change to the Constitution. Councillor Alan Vincent, in the absence of Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This obviously stems from the Council meeting in December 2017, when Councillor Henderson announced shortly after his appointment that he wanted an experiment of sound recording of these meetings. That has continued ever since and has proved to be extremely popular with the public. And if I may say so, in terms of transparency, it has been an extremely good move. I can say that in the past, when the minutes were posted, the number of hits on the site would be single figures, not normally more than 5 people having a look at it. On the last occasion when the recording was put on the site, well over 100 people visited it and listened to the recording. So it's been a tremendous success, and I'm sure everybody will want to support it. I propose it.
Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Councillor Rhys Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, can I just sort of respond to the number of hits on the site? The quality at the moment is quite poor, and you do have to keep going back in to actually go over and listen to what has actually been said. But here we are again, and I'm absolutely astounded by the sheer arrogance of this Tory ruling group. Whenever you are challenged by the Labour opposition, whatever the issue is, instead of a positive debate being held, your responses, as the saying goes, you spit your dummy out. Instead of reducing the contents of the minutes, we should be ensuring full, robust recordings. But your aim is to stifle debate, you attempt to gag us, and you do this by changing the rules, moving the goalposts, by amending the Constitution. I know I'm repeating myself, but as so often happens in this chamber, you do not listen to us. So I will list again some examples where you have changed the rules to meet your needs and definitely not the needs of the residents of this borough, after a direct challenge from the Labour group. The way the calling procedure is undertaken, when I called in the spending of the CCG funding on the beach huts and then the decision to charge to use a splash pad, I brought to the meetings a vast amount of evidence to support my arguments. Evidence that took me some time to collate. Evidence that at the time took an officer to respond to me and not the portfolio holder. So what do you do to prevent any embarrassment in the future? You change the rules. Now councillors must provide any evidence that they will be using to support their calling with the initial submission, and that is near enough impossible to do due to the time constraints. And then we have the atrocious decision to gag members of the public in planning meetings. The very people that you've been elected to represent, the very people that you say you are listening to when it comes to issues in their community. But you didn't like people coming here and voicing their concerns around issues in their communities, so what do? You actually put a time limit on how long they can speak for, once again stifling debate, once again changing the rules, amending the constitution for your own needs. And it doesn't end there. You continue to remind us that we're not just Fleetwood councillors, but councillors representing Wyre. Then when a Labour councillor went to the assistance of a Poulton resident and supported them in a planning matter, you once again changed the constitution. Once again, you limit the way councillors can perform their duties. You are in fact gagging councillors. Now, only the ward councillor can request that a planning application goes before the planning committee. This was done purely and simply because, once again, you'd been embarrassed. It had nothing to do with improving or streamlining the process. The rule changing, the constitution changing, this is all about you, the ruling group, and how you will stoop to anything to ensure you're not left red-faced by us, the Labour opposition, and more worrying by the very people you are supposedly representing. And now, after we have challenged repeatedly the accuracy of the written minutes and championed for transparency for our residents, you are once again changing the constitution. It's shameful. It is a step forward that there is an audio recording, and we are pleased here on the Labour side, as we have fought tirelessly for over 2 years for a more accurate process. We have finally ground you down, and we will continue to do so. However, people also want to transcribe coverage of proceedings. What you are proposing is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to this council. It's a disgraceful and contemptuous way to stop democracy, openness and transparency. And as a result, you are once again letting down the residents of this borough. Again, though, that does not surprise me. And as alluded to by Councillor Brian Stevenson earlier, several of the Tory Wyre Borough Council's opposites, these are the same ones who dictate on what happens here in our borough, the same ones who decide how we run our meetings, the same ones who decide what gets recorded in the minutes, the same ones who are going to push through this undemocratic change to the constitution. These are the same Tory councillors that love our borough so much they can't even bring themselves to live in Wyre. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We've reached the 5 minutes. Thank you. Yes. That's it. Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems there really are no bounds to the lack of respect for residents or democracy, with proposals to dumb down the minutes even further than they were in December 2016. According to para 2.1 of the report, the expected outcome will provide more up-to-date and effective governance arrangements. The outcome would more correctly read more outdated and ineffective governance arrangements. So there we have it. The Conservative leadership has its finger on the pulse and will make the governance more effective by providing less detail. The stance is both arrogant and delusional. If it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable. By providing less detail to residents, members and officers in the way of minutes, holding the council to account will become a more difficult task. And it's for that reason why this proposal should be withdrawn or rejected. The Conservative group just aren't interested in being held to account, and hence their continued attacks on democracy. The audio recordings of meetings should have provided the council with the potential to improve the accuracy of the minutes. Yet rather than seizing on the opportunity, Wyre Conservatives are using as an excuse to dumb down the minutes even further than they did in December 2016, when the level of detail was reduced without any discussion, any debate or any agreement by this council. A small number of people may listen to recordings immediately after the meeting, but minutes are there for everyone to refer back to months or even years later. People can't be expected to trawl through hours of recordings to search for a question and answer on a key issue, especially when that key issue is not even referred to in the minutes. It just about says it all that proposals being put forward includes the removal of rights of members to propose amendments to the minutes. Minuting should be simple, yet I've witnessed the inability in Wyre Conservatives to get it right over many years. I remember when Jubilee Action Group had a meeting with Conservative councillors in July 2003. The minutes were produced without obtaining input from Jubilee Action Group, resulting in Conservative councillors putting their spin on the meeting. The point being that this lack of respect by the Conservative group for democracy and the rights of minority groups isn't a recent thing. It's a long-standing issue only the group can put right. And it's not just me saying this. Criticism on social media is widespread. So why, if you have a reputation of being, and I quote, as transparent as lead, would you not try to dispel that reputation rather than doing the exact opposite and helping to reinforce the belief held by many? At the last full council, the Labour group was told to take away our budget and business plan amendments at this full council. It's apparently not the forum to discuss changes. Well, based on that logic, perhaps the required detail of full council minutes could more properly be considered in an ONS task group. We ask that this motion is withdrawn and that the required level of detail is considered by a task group. If you can't see your way to doing that, then we ask councillors to think for themselves, do the decent thing and reject these ridiculous proposals. This is an opportunity for the Conservative group to tell its leadership enough is enough, and let's do the right thing for Wyre and democracy. Thank you.
Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've said this about 100 times, it feels like, in this chamber. Task groups do not consider the Constitution, and there is no constitutional mechanism for a task group to report to full council. It reports to Cabinet. So you can't have a task group on it, even if you wanted one. Councillor Fyle referred to the replacement of paper minutes with an online recording accessible to all as outdated. Well, I'm afraid I don't agree with that. Yes, you did.
We're talking about the minutes.
So you're talking about the change from the minutes to an online recording.
Sorry, Councillor, not a debate. No.
Okay, so I haven't myself bothered to listen to the minutes online. It doesn't interest me, but I appreciate it interests other people. It interests 5 people in the written form. It interests 100 people or so in the online audio form. If there are ways that the audio record can be improved, then I would suggest that we look at them. But as far as I'm aware, have there been any constructive proposals for how we display those minutes online? No, there have been none. So rather than actually engage with that, to complain about the quality, they do it here, and they grandstand, and they have the arrogance to call this proposal arrogant and delusional. It's an absolute farce. The only person who cares about the minutes in this form is Councillor Fyle and his highlighter pen. The Labour group didn't care till he came onto this council, and it's all sawing a teacup about nothing. Thank you.
Point of order. Sorry, I've been bringing the minutes up since I became leader, and what are you frightened of? Why can we not have it documented?
Councillors, it's not councillors, it's not a debate. Sorry. Thank you. Not cross chamber. Councillor Bridge.
None of you in here have got a mind of your own.
Councillor Bridge.
Thank you, Councillor. I was polite enough to listen when you were speaking. Thank you. So I'm going to speak then. Thank you very much. I was called on. Well, first of all, we're not frightened of embracing change, and this is change. Now, people would have been worried about the printing press, as they were. Caxton was attacked for printing books, and people said, oh, this is a terrible change. Why are we going to do this? And people were scared of even stupid things like CFAX about news coming too quick. This is just a change. This is a change. We shouldn't be Luddites. Let's embrace. This council is famous for embracing change. We do it more effectively. As far as I'm concerned, listening to a recording, you hear the nuance of what's said, you hear it properly in context, and you get every word. Nobody can put that down on a piece of paper. There are systems in place for people who are hard of hearing. That can be explained to you, but they are there. But that's part of our statutory duty. One final thing I'd like to say, and I have to say, I didn't really want to, this isn't about politics, but to be told that the Conservative Party has a lack of respect for minority groups, You're a member of a party that is riven with anti-Semitism, which is just appalling.
Madam Mayor, that's an absolute outrage.
Sorry. Councillors, please.
Councillor Beavers.
Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wow.
Absolutely disgraceful.
I am sat here today listening to you guys telling us that you've got democracy when we're not, when the people of this borough aren't allowed to read online what's happening in this council chamber. Today we have an audience. Half of the time there's nobody in here, and we're sat here battling for Fleetwood and for the people of Fleetwood and Wyre. And you take away every right and every way that we can stand up for the people of Wyre, whether it be on planning, whether it be in it's recorded. And so when we come back to you later on, there's nothing there on paper to evidence what is going on in this council chamber. So you guys, you bullies, because that's what you are, you're bully boys, come in this council chamber, totally ignore Fleetwood. We've just seen a posting where Fylde Council are doing a splash pad. Remember the splash pad that we brought the plans in for Fleetwood for? They've got that splash pad in Fylde because at least in Fylde Conservative Council they listened to their residents. Fleetwood wanted that splash pad, had the plans made 10 years ago, and you ignored us and then charged for a little bit of concrete with a bit of a paddling pool for our kids. That's all we're worth, but it's not. And now you want to have a recording so people have to troll on to recordings of what's happened in this chamber. It's about time you stood up for all of the people in Wyre, and you stood up for what you implement in this town, because you ignore Fleetwood and you ignore Cleveland, and it's all about you guys, and it's about time it was there for all of the people of Wyre to read and listen to. And hiding behind your new democracy that you're bringing out today is absolutely ridiculous. It's about time that it was out there for all of the residents of Wyre to see. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Any other speakers? Thank you very much. Councillor Alan Vincent, as the proposer of the recommendation, would you please respond to the debate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, not Mrs. Mayor, sorry, I'm taking Brian's lead now. Can we just get back to where we started from very many months ago, which was when this issue was first raised. It was and has continued to be suggested that we write the minutes in some way. We don't write the minutes. The minutes are and always have been produced by the officers of this council, and what the opposition have been doing over the last 12 months or 2 years is running a concerted campaign, to pressurise officers into putting in phrases that they want to quote in leaflets. That's what it's all about. And the bottom line here is, Councillor Fylde said we give less detail. How on earth can we give less detail when we put a full recording of everything that's said in this chamber, in a council meeting, on the website? How can it be less transparent than that? It is fully transparent. 5 people have a look at it when it's online in written form, and well over 100 look at it when it's in verbal form. That tells you that it's a success, and it's a success that they don't like, because what they really want is verbatim minutes, and they've been told consistently that they won't get them, and they won't. Vote for the proposal.
Thank you very much. Would members please vote on the recommendation? Those in favour, please show. Those against? No abstentions? Any abstentions? No. The recommendation is approved. The next item is notices on motion. However, there are none. So that concludes the business for this evening, and the meeting is now closed. Thank you for attending.